Hello and thank you for joining us at Behind the Bar. Today we're going to preview our upcoming Europa League fixture against Real Sociedad. Of course, at this point, Man United have now been knocked out of the FA Cup, been knocked out of the Carabao Cup, and we're completely hopeless in the Premier League as far as finishing in the top half of the table. And as I mentioned a few weeks back, the Europa League represents the only chance that we have as a club to end the season on a high, to salvage something out of what's been a disaster of a campaign. But hope still lies in this Europa League. And of course, we faced Real Sociedad during our winning campaign of the Europa League under Jose Mourinho. Two closely fought ties. I think Rashford scored a free kick, the winning goal in Spain. And so we're quite familiar with this opponent. Looking at Sociedad today, they're mid-table in La Liga. -4 goal difference. They just got smashed by Barcelona over the weekend, albeit down to 10 men with a red card, I think the 8th minute of the game. But nonetheless, a formidable outfit, considering that Man United aren't setting the world alight right now. And this is going to be a tough test on every single front. Real Sociedad, like I said, are a good team, a decent team, 9th place in La Liga. And of course, Man United currently 14th in the Premier League. And on paper, you would argue that perhaps Sociedad are the favorites. But I think this is a game that we can certainly win to progress into the quarterfinals, which at that stage, really anyone can win the competition. A two-legged tie, first leg up is this Thursday. And I think that Man United have a tall task on their hands to get a result in this game. And we're going to look at our predicted 11 and our predictions for the game. Of course, starting at the back, Andre Onana is going to be between the sticks. Altay Bayındır has been unfortunately injured over the past few weeks. If not, I think he certainly would have pushed Onana for a starting position, considering the number of errors that Onana has had in recent weeks. And of course, Bayındır has held his own when he's been called up on. Of course, that memorable performance against Arsenal in the FA Cup still comes to mind. And I think he does deserve a run in the first team. And he's been a cup goalkeeper to this point. So it's a real shame that he's been out injured. But like I said, Onana will take his place. And in the back three, I must say that Matthias de Ligt had, I think, his best performance by far in the game against Fulham, with just a mammoth of a performance. Some really crunching tackles, really helped to solidify that back line. And I think he'll start again on the right center back. Hopefully he's not injured. I saw him clutching at his shoulder after one of those crunching tackles I mentioned. But if he's fit, he certainly starts at the right center back. Maguire was also substituted against Fulham, going into the extra time prior to penalties. And if he passes a fitness test, I imagine that he'll take his place in that center back position. And on the left center back, I think we'll see Lenny Yoro once again. I think those three certainly gave a good account of themselves last week and the previous weeks as well. I think Heaven came in and played a really good game, didn't really look out of place in his first start and first appearance for Man United since his switch from Arsenal. And I don't think we'll see him start this game, but I think he showed off the bench against Fulham that he is a viable option, and he'll probably get some minutes at some point, especially the fact that we're so thin in that back line. But those three, I think, will take their places in the center-back position. And the wing-backs, thankfully, Patrick Dorgu will be back in the lineup for this game. His suspension following that red card only applies to domestic games, and this being a European tie, we'll see him fit and available. Of course, he had a nice week's rest, and so he'll be primed, fresh, and ready to go, and that's really good news for this team. So Patrick Dorgu would be on the left wing back. On the right wing back, I think Amorim has a decision to make here. Do we go with Diogo Dalot, who has really been poor these last few weeks? Yes, he had an assist for Bruno's goal against Fulham, but I think that was his only meaningful contribution in that entire game. And I don't mean to single him out, but he just has not been good. I think he needs a rest. So I would start with Mazraoui as a right wing back. I think he's a lot more assured defensively. Perhaps Delo provides a little bit more going forward. Of course, with that assist that I just mentioned against Fulham. But I think in this game against Sociedad, we're going to need to be strong defensively. So I will start with Mazraoui as a right wing back. And in the pivot, of course, Mano Uate takes his place as one of the two pivots. We're really short of options here. Do you go with Casemiro, who really doesn't have the legs to get up and down, but against opponents that he's probably familiar with his time in Madrid, playing against Sociedad at least twice each year? This might be a game that you might want to start Casemiro. Like I said, he's familiar with the opponents. He's used to the pace of European ties. And of course, he comes with that experience of playing in European ties. And so I think Uate and Casemiro will be the two that I will sit in front of that back three. And that was the preferred partnership under Ruud van Nistelrooy, which got us through that spell. And I think they do complement each other well. Of course, Uate has the legs, and like I said, Casemiro with the wealth of experience that he brings to the middle of the park. And just for the lack of options there, I imagine that those two starting could put a good shift in. And the number 10s, the two 10s, Xerxes, he played his heart out. And I really felt for him missing that penalty against Fulham. And as much as I think he could do with the rest, just the lack of options there means that we kind of have to start him there, right? I mean, there's no Ahmad, there's no Mason Mount, there's no Kobe Mainu, Garnacho has a knock. So there aren't really too many options. And he's the one player that, like I've said over the last few weeks, has progressed in his performances. And so I think he just has to start. So we'll go with Xerxes in one of the 10s. And then, of course, Captain Fantastic Bruno Fernandes. I think we need him higher up the pitch. With how we've struggled for goals, him being the one player that has gotten the goals and assists, I think it's important that he plays closer to the goal to give ourselves a chance to be able to get the win in this game. So Bruno and Xerxes in the number 10s. Now up top, it's a really big shame that Chido Obi is not eligible for this game. Unfortunately, when United submitted their squad list back in February, Chido was not included. And at this point in the competition, it's too late to make changes to the squad. And so Chido Obi is not eligible for the Europa League for the remainder of the campaign. And so that leaves us having to start Rasmus Højlund. And it must be said that he's having a really terrible run of form right now. He started the game pretty well against Fulham. Couple good runs, had the one chance that Eriksen provided to him at the near post. But outside of that, he's just been a shadow of the player that we saw score double-digit goals in the Premier League last season, and I think was the highest or joint highest top scorer in the Champions League in the group stage before we were kicked out of the competition. And he seems to have regressed from last season. But again, for lack of options up top, Højlund is going to have to start and look to try to gain some form, look to try to build some momentum and try to affect the team. And I think playing Bruno in that 10 is going to help Højlund, a player who wants to find those runs, who wants to play in the killer pass. I think is going to help a player like Rasmus Højlund, who, to be fair to him, he does run the channels. But I think the team just doesn't have the confidence to try to find him when he makes those runs right now. But playing Bruno in behind, I think can only be good for Højlund. And so that's the 11 that I would go with in this crucial round of 16 tie against Real Sociedad in the Europa League. My prediction for this game, I think both teams are going to struggle to score goals. Like I said, Man United have a negative 6 or 7 goal difference in the Premier League. Real Sociedad have a negative 4 goal difference in La Liga. And so two teams that really struggle to find the back of the net. I am going to go with a narrow 1-0 win to United. I think we just managed to edge this one out. I think Bruno is going to be the difference. Probably the one player that can provide that moment of brilliance, that moment to win the game. So I'm going to go for Bruno to be the match winner and Man United to edge out the game with a narrow 1-0 win. So we'll see how that works out on Thursday. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and share. Certainly means a lot to the channel here. And thank you again for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.